I'm LT, and this is Surplus History. And today we're at Jamestown, Virginia for the Military Through the Ages event. And with me is Patches of Recondo.
Hey, thanks, Luke. So, Recondo School is a finishing school for long-range patrol. Typically, what long-range patrol was 5 to 7 men operating in an enemy-infested area for 5 to 7 days at a time. So, Recondo School was the finishing for that. Typically, this was a 3-week course. It was run by 5th Special Forces in Nha Trang, South Vietnam. The first week of class was purely academic, medical, map reading, weapons familiarization, radio procedures, artillery procedures. The second week was hands-on. They would go to an island off the coast of Nha Trang called Han Tre, and they would do a lot of hands-on activities, lots of weapon firing, helicopter ops. They would actually practice calling in artillery and airstrikes.
Wow.
And then finally, the third week is the actual finishing, is the final exercise.
So wait, so it was just like bang, 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 classroom,
Yes.
practicals, and then a mission?
Yes, pretty much, yeah. They needed to filter a lot of students on a lot of LRPs, which are long-range patrol, what we call themselves, through the course. There was a distinct need for the kind of reconnaissance that these teams were doing, due to the nature of the war with the 1-year service enlistments and due to the fact that these missions were exceedingly dangerous.
Okay.
So they needed a lot of men, they needed to get them trained, and they needed to get them trained fairly quickly.
Wow.
A requirement for this, so all the students needed to be in a combat MOS. They needed to either have an assignment in a LRP unit or were going to be assigned to a LRP unit. And they needed to have at least 6 months in country.
Wow. Okay.
They didn't want to send anybody out that's going to be, that's going to come back and
no
be like,
green.
yeah,
Right. Okay.
yeah, no double-digit midgets.
Yeah, well, the guys who are too short.
Yeah. So 6 months in, like the school said, school's 3 weeks. Typically, you're looking at about, I want to say between class size of 40 to 60. It included all of the major military commands of the free world that were operating in South Vietnam.
Okay.
All the Army commands, all the Army divisions. This also included U.S. Air Force, U.S. Navy, Navy SEALs, Pathfinders. There would be men from the various South Vietnamese units, as well as Austria, Royal Thai, New Zealand.
Was it like Koreans? You said Koreans?
Yes,
too?
yep. The South Koreans were there in force. They would have their own cadre. They were not allowed to mix with the U.S. due to cultural issues.
They're a little fierce, from what I understand.
Koreans were hardcore, man. Don't mess with the South Koreans. So they had their own cadre and their own kind of things. They did have U.S. instructors, though.
So these guys who went through the school, I mean, what happens after they leave the school? What happens?
So what happens is that they would go back to their unit, and they would then usually become team leaders for recon teams, and then they would go apply what they learned. One interesting thing about the school is that usually by the first week they knew who was going to pass and who was going to fail. Regardless of what they thought of that, they would keep all of those students in for the first 2 weeks.
Okay, so it's not like basic or you're done, you're out.
Right. Yeah, you failed the test.
They at least want these guys to absorb some knowledge.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because even if they couldn't pass, even if they weren't cut out for recon, they would still take that knowledge. They would still learn a lot. They can bring that back to their home unit. Even if they're not going to become team leaders.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. They would spread the knowledge, and that was really the whole thing. The staff, the cadre of the school, were former recon men. From SOG, from Special Forces teams, from various LRP units. These are guys that had been in country for years, have been running recon for years, and they realized that they're getting a little old for this. Their life, running recon is very dangerous.
Right. These guys are old. You mean like in their late 20s?
Yeah, and then by old I mean like 25. The typical age for your LRPs were 18, 19, and 20. 20 were old men.
Wow, crazy. So, what are we in? We're standing in a building here, which surprised me. For like most events you go to, it's tents or you're sleeping out in the open.
Yes.
But we're in an actual stick-built 2x4 building.
Yep. So this is our hooch. They're referred to as a lot. We call it a team house. That's called a hooch. This is very indicative of the kind of buildings you have. It's made out of very basic plywood, 2x4s. We got some galvanized sheet roofing. You'll notice that ours is in fact bolted together because we got to take it down and bring it home and put it back up and stuff. But usually these are just hammered together. Sometimes they'd be purposely built by engineers, but oftentimes they'd be just built by guys that came across some construction supplies in some way, shape, or form and got tired of living in a tent or had a need for a building.
They acquired things.
Yes.
What you're telling me,
Yes.
I guess, huh?
Special Forces, the LRP teams did have access to significant amounts of captured enemy weaponry. Once you get your first AK, it's cool, it's an AK. But for your rear echelon guys that don't have that kind of experience or don't kind of have that exposure to that, got a lot of stuff for trading AKs.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Any other like takeaways for Recondo?
Just like the sheer the width and breadth and the information of it. They called it. It was known as the most dangerous school in the world. Obviously, week 3 is the final exercise. You actually go on a recon patrol with the students and with the cadre into an enemy held area west of the Trang.
There's one mission that I remember though. You told me previously about that the one class had a really difficult final assignment. Was it something like Tet or something?
So Tet. So it was frequently talked about that Tet. None of the training cycles were ever interrupted. There were 3 weeks and they went on full. Tet obviously occurred, and certain students were called out to do some stuff to help secure U.S. installations in the area.
Okay, cool.
But for the most part, yeah, no, it happened. The school ran from like 66 and ended December 31st, 1969. It was shut down by Creighton Abrams. He did not particularly care for special forces as a former tanker. And didn't really see the need for it.
Wow.
It was turned over to the South Vietnamese, to the Arvins, and they ran their students through it.
Interesting. So it's a very brief window, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. It was fairly good. I think they only ended up training around 3,000 people through the entire history of the camp.
So impressive, because all those 3,000 people are then disseminating the information.
Yep, they disseminate the information, they go back, they go to SOG, they go to their units.
And that's exactly what you guys are doing today, though, if you're disseminating this information to the public at events like today.
Yeah,
so,
there's certain information that we can take from that. Obviously, we can't teach kids to run recon, but we can tell them how to use their senses, we can show them like how we were extracted, we can tell them how to use signal mirrors, how to signal stuff. We take a look at the food and the certain things that were done to kind of increase.
Yeah, look at our food video we got coming out too.
It's good stuff. It's very tasty.
Well, so Military Through the Ages is an annual event here at Jamestown. So if you want to see the Recondo guys, come out next year. It's usually about the third weekend in March.
Yep, always the third weekend in March.
They are here every year, and they're an awesome group. So it's been historical. Thank you guys.